So how does the dial home device, or DHD, actually work? You'll find out right after this. Hey everybody, I'm Taylor and I'm the Stargate Guy, where I talk to you about everything and anything Stargate. Today's another How It Works episode where we talk about how things work, self-explanatory. Today we're talking about the dial home device, or the DHD. The DHD, or dial home device, was created by the ancients in order to use the Stargates to navigate around the entire freaking universe. The oldest version of the dial home device is on Destiny. This is a completely different version of DHD that we've seen from Stargate SG-1 as well as Stargate Atlantis. This DHD is really basic. All it's supposed to do is supposed to see what gates are within range, monitor power output, monitor input from the gate, as well as to compensate for stellar drift, where the ship is now in relation to where the gates are in the universe. The DHD would then evolve into the Milky Way gate system. This DHD formed into a pedestal, and this pedestal contains a lot. Although the Stargate can be dialed by itself manually, the DHD makes it a lot easier and performs all sorts of different things that we don't see in order to keep the gate system running. For example, we do know that we need to take stellar drift into account. Stellar drift is basically where the stars are going a little further and further apart each year, and eventually, if they spread out far enough, you can't reach them. The dialing coordinates are no longer valid. So the DHD compensates for that stellar drift and does so rather constantly. We are guessing that the gates call each other and update their address book to compensate for stellar drift once every couple hundred years. Although we do know that some things such as the Avenger virus can trigger one of these updates. We also know that the DHD must contain a power source that can transmit electricity wirelessly to the Stargate in order to make it function. We know that the Stargate takes a tremendous amount of power in order to activate. Therefore, there must be a power source within the DHD. We do know that DHDs and gates are connected, coming in sets, and that each set has its own unique identifier as a starting location. A DHD must also recognize what symbols are being pushed and to help control all of these different elements that are talking to each other. We also know that the DHD must have some other parts of components to it, such as safety regulations, understanding what gates you can dial to, what gates you can't dial to. There must be some sort of transmitter or receiving through subspace going on there, or through the wormholes that were supposed to be established. Such safety features, although not entirely dummy-proof, have been seen to happen, such as gates not dialing when there's something in the receiving gate's event horizon. We also know that these systems are so intertwined that if you removed one of the crystals, the DHD will not function, or at least will not function properly and safely. We know from looking at the crystal formations that the giant crystal in the middle is the Master Control Crystal. At least that's what Sam Carter calls it. The Master Control Crystal presumably does just that. It monitors everything. It's much kind of like a motherboard and a CPU. It helps control all of the different parts, making sure that everything runs efficiently and everything is good to go. If there's a problem with the Master Control Crystal, things don't really work. However, if you want to jerry-rig a DHD, you can remove the Master Control Crystal in order to manipulate the programming of the DHD itself. We also know that the programming of the DHD can be manipulated, as in the episode Avenger 2.0, as well as Redemption Part 2, the one where they dial all the gates simultaneously. Presumably then around the Master Control Crystal are the other control crystals. Although we do not know exactly what crystals control what, we do know that there must be regulatory crystals for power consumption, for stellar drift, a crystal to monitor the dialing, to make sure that the dialing is right, that the symbols mean what they are supposed to mean. A lot about the DHD the people at Stargate Command know, but it has not been declassified for us meaning they haven't been that specific during the show. The only official blueprints of the DHD were created in the episode The Fifth Race by O'Neill, when he currently had the knowledge of the ancients downloaded into his brain. However, if you were to stop and look at this, you can't really make out what it says. At least I can't really read the handwriting. And this has the detailed instructions onto how to resolve a mid-dial freeze. You enter in a couple of different numbers, but the rest freeze. You can't enter anything else. It's all locked up. However, through all of the different knowledge and by the blueprints given by Jack O'Neill, the Stargate Command was able to understand how DHDs work, therefore how to manipulate them down the line, such as with uploading the Avenger virus or manipulating it so that Teal'c can come out alive out of the buffer. Now, as you bring up the entire keyboard, you see all of the crystals on the outer ring. We don't know what those do. We do know that the ancients would color coordinate their crystals, so presumably some of those are about different power regulations, some of those must be about stellar drift, some input, some output, some safety regulations, but we don't really know for sure since actual schematics of the DHD has not been created or released to us fans. The Pegasus DHD seen on other planets apart from Atlantis looks very, very similar to the ones found in the Milky Way galaxy, except with some cosmetic differences. Some different coloring, if you will, possibly some different materials making the pedestal, or very similar materials since you're in the Pegasus galaxy, not the Milky Way galaxy, but essentially they work the same. The DHD in Atlantis is a very big upgrade. We do know that the ancients evolved technologically through the centuries, and the DHD in Atlantis was far better than the DHDs plopped around on all sorts of planets all over the galaxy. It was a lot more smaller and compact, as well as the crystals themselves are of a upgraded form. However, the functions are nevertheless very similar, with the exception being that the Atlantis DHD is capable of dialing other galaxies, whereas the ones on other planets are not, as well as it is able to function into raising and lowering the shield around the gate as well. The Puddle Jumper DHD is a much more compact version, although it does not have a couple of the bells and whistles that the Atlantis one does, but they look and act very similar. The main difference between the Puddle Jumper DHDs and the ones in Atlantis is that when you enter an address in the Puddle Jumper, the Atlantis DHD cannot override it. That gate is responding to that one DHD and will not take orders from the others. However, the other one presumably can raise and lower the shields, but that's never used for some reason. It's always deactivated or something happens to it. Let me know what other information you have about the DHD in the comment section down below. And if you're new to this channel, go ahead and subscribe. Great videos are coming out every week where I talk to you about everything and anything Stargate. You can click right here for another How It Works episode, or right here for some more Stargate awesomeness. Thank you to everyone who bought me a cup of coffee. You're the ones that help keep this channel running. Thank you very much. And until next time, I'll see you on the other side.